that politically King Solomon was very aware of, that the demand for a king was because of the bribery of the judges, especially Samuel's two sons. So if you'll turn with me to 1 Samuel 8, 1 through 7, I want to read this to you. When Samuel became old, you know how that feels when you become old, he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn son was Joel, or Joel in Spanish, and the name of his second, Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba, which is in the south of Israel, the 7 wells that Isaac had dug in his lifetime. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after gain. So we'll see in our first verse in Proverbs 17 about pursuing wisdom instead of silver or instead of gold. Because he's letting his judges know that he is not going to stand for bribery. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations." So the solution that the people were seeking was to have a king who would straighten out the judges so that they would not pervert justice. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." And Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them." That is, the fear of the Lord should have been the solution to correct judges that accepted bribes and perverted justice. Turn with me now to Judges 4 through 6 and 11. And this is the story of Deborah, the prophetess and judge at Ramah. So Samuel used to be a judge at Ramah, but he came after Deborah. And so we're going to read in Judges 4 through 6 about Deborah. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. And the people of Israel came up to her for judgment. So she had her own palm tree between Ramah and Bethel. Bethel is where Jacob had his dream about a ladder that went from earth to heaven with angels coming up and down that ladder. And he said, "I did not know that God was in this place." She sent and summoned Barak, the son of Abinoam from Kadesh Naphtali, and said to him, "Has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you? Go gather your men at Mount Tabor. taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun. I want you to notice that God had commanded Barak, the son of Abinoam, to gather his men and go to Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun. That means that all the heads of households, usually men, would gather together. So they're the representatives of 10,000 families. There was no standing army during the time of the judges. So when a battle was looming and trouble was ahead, they had to blow the shofar from hilltop to hilltop all through the land to gather the heads of household to go into battle. Now, Heber the Kenite had separated from the Kenites the descendants of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent as far away as the oak in Zananim, which is near Kadesh Naphtali, that we've already talked about, because there's lots of places named Kadesh in Israel. So Kadesh Naphtali is in the north and on the coast. And this Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, that's a term of endearment for Jethro. Jethro was his title, which means his excellency. We talked about that last week. Hobab means beloved, cherished, the cherished one, who was the father-in-law of Moses. His real name seems to be Ruel, and had pitched his tent as far away as the oak in Zananim, which is near Kadesh, which is through the influence of Hobab and Heber, who had separated himself from the Kenites, which was the Amorite tribe, which was in the Lebanon area, close to Sidon and close to Naphtali on the coast. That influence made it possible, because of the organization of families, to raise an army quickly at the sound of a shofar, at the sound of a trumpet. Now in Judges 5:1-7, I want you to listen to the song of Deborah that she sang with Barak, the son of Abinoam. It was a duet on the day that they won the battle for the settlement of the tribes in the northern part of Israel. So in Judges 5:1-7, it reads like this. Then sang Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, on that day, that the leaders took the lead in Israel, that the people offered themselves willingly, bless the Lord, like what's happening in the Ukraine now. People who are not part of the army are offering themselves to fight off oppression and the invading army. Hear, O kings, give ear, O princes. To the Lord I will sing. I will make melody to the Lord, the God of Israel. See, that's what prophets did. They were singers. They were musicians. They sang about the activity of God. Lord, when you went out from Seir, that's in the south, when you marched from the region of Edom, in the south, the land of Esau, the earth trembled and the heavens dropped. Yes, the clouds dropped water. The mountains quaked before the Lord, even Sinai before the Lord, the God of Israel. That's the fear of the Lord. A visitation of God's presence. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned and travelers kept to the byways. The villagers ceased in Israel. They ceased to be until I arose. Deborah arose as a mother of Israel. She was a prophetess who sang and composed songs spontaneously, and she was a judge that had her own palm tree, and she's the mother of Israel. Judges 5, 8-14. When new gods were chosen, this is idolatry, then war was in the gates. This is wisdom. When you turn to other gods besides the Creator God, there is war in the gates. Was shield or spear to be seen among 40,000 in Israel? They had no weapons. My heart goes out to the commanders of Israel who offered themselves willingly among the people. Bless the Lord. Tell of it, you who ride on white donkeys, you who sit on rich carpets, and you who walk by the way. To the sound of musicians at the watering places, there they repeat the righteous triumphs of the Lord, the righteous triumphs of his villagers in Israel. Then down to the gates marched the people of the Lord. Awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake, break out in a song. Arise, Barak, lead away your captives, O son of Abinoam. Then down marched the remnant of the noble. The people of the Lord marched down for me against the mighty. From Ephraim, their root, they marched down into the valley, following you, Benjamin, with your kinsmen. Kinsman is family. Kinsmen are relatives. You see it, for instance, in the book of Ruth. From Machir marched down the commanders, and from Zebulun, those who bear the lieutenant's staff. Then there are those who stayed away from the battle. The princes of Issachar came with Deborah, and Issachar, faithful to Barak. Into the valley they rushed at their heels. Among the clans of Reuben there were great searchings of heart. Why did you sit still among the sheepfolds to hear the whistling for the flocks? Among the clans of Reuben, the clans is still family, but it's a bigger group. It's family by the thousands, everybody that you're related to in the tribe. Among the clans of Reuben, there were great searching of heart. Gilead stayed beyond the Jordan, and Dan, why did he stay with the ships? Asher sat still at the coast of the sea, staying by his landings. Zebulun is a people who risked their lives to the death. Naphtali too, on the heights of the field. Judges 5:15-18. Let's move on to 19. The heavenly host led into battle by the angel of the Lord. The Creator's name, that is in the deputy king, Melech. The kings came, they fought. Then fought the kings of Canaan at Ta'anak by the waters of Megiddo. Megiddo, this is starting to sound like Armageddon here. They got no spoils of silver. From heaven the stars fought from their courses. They fought against Sisera. The torrent Kishon swept them away. The ancient torrent, the torrent Kishon. March on, my soul, with might. Then loud beat the horses' hoofs with the galloping of his steeds. Curse Meroz, says the angel of the Lord. Curse its inhabitants thoroughly, because they did not come to the help of the Lord, to the help of the Lord against the mighty. Verses 24 through 27. Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, of tent-dwelling women most blessed. He asked for water, and she gave him milk. She brought him curds in a noble's bowl. She sent her hand to the tent peg, and her right hand to the workman's mallet. She struck Sisera, she crushed his head, she shattered and pierced his temple. Between her feet he sank, he fell, he lay still. Between her feet he sank, he fell. Where he sank, there he fell dead. Quite a song, huh? Judges 5:28 through 31. Out of the window she peered. The mother of Sisera wailed through the lattice. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why tarry the hoofbeats of his chariots? Her wisest princesses answer. Indeed, she answers herself, have they not found and divided the spoil? A womb or two for every man? Spoil of dyed materials for Sisera? Spoil of dyed materials embroidered? 2 pieces of dyed work embroidered for the neck as spoil? So may all your enemies perish, O Lord, but your friends be like the sun as he rises in his might. And the land had rest for 40 years. What a song. A song written by Deborah. Now what's interesting about this is we are introduced to an unarmed people of God who are kin, the family you live with in your house, the kinsmen, the uncles and the cousins, the kindred, the surrounding neighbors and villagers, the clans, the major part of tribes and the tribes, and then comes the king. Whenever I talk about the 144,000, people ask me, is that a real number or a symbolic number? That's a funny question because all numbers are symbolic. We didn't even have numbers until the Arabs invented numbers and invented 0. All numbers are symbolic. But the 144,000 is counting families. And the families get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the units, which are not symbolic, are families. So whenever you see the 144,000, you are talking about real families, made up of kin, kinsmen, kindred, clans, tribes, and kings. Kin of 10 families, kinsmen of 50 families, kindred of 100 families, clans of 1,000 families, of all the tribes of God's people. Then comes the king. The king who does not tolerate bribery among the judges. Now, what's interesting with Deborah, as a judge, she is not just a judge for one tribe. All the tribes in the north would come to see her judge. Not just the tribe of Ephraim, but of Naphtali, of Manasseh, of Zebulun, of Reuben. That's why she calls out to them, why didn't you come out to fight Sisera? Before there was a king, she was almost a king because she had the influence to call out every family representation, every person who could fight, to come out and fight for Sisera. Not just one tribe, but the whole 10 tribes of the north. She was almost King Deborah before there ever was a king. And she knew how to call out kin, kinsmen, kindred, clans, and tribes to gather them together, because the failing of Israel is the families and the tribes wouldn't come out to fight. That's one of the reasons why they asked for a king to fight their battles for them. So let's look at this in Proverbs, because now we're talking about the king who rules over, and he is using in the teaching of wisdom and the covenant and the 10 Commandments and the fear of the Lord. He's using those divisions of families, because God's people are never above families. Even to choose a king, they could only choose a king who was among them. They could not have a foreigner rule over them. So look at Proverbs 17, 1-7. Better is a dry morsel with quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. We read this last week. A servant who deals wisely will rule over a son who acts shamefully and will share the inheritance as one of the brothers. In the law, the family law of Israel, a servant could become part of the family. In Roman law, that wasn't acceptable because you would be marrying out of your class. But you can see it in the Sabbath commandment that I pointed out last week. The crucible is for silver, and the furnace is for gold, and the Lord tests hearts. Solomon is talking to his judges now. When you're a judge, you are not looking for silver and gold to purify. You are looking at the Lord tests hearts. In Revelation, speaking in the church of Laodicea, God says, if you're going to overcome, buy of me gold tried in the fire. An evildoer listens to wicked lips, and a liar gives ear to a mischievous tongue. Whoever mocks the poor insults his maker. He who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. Grandchildren are the crown of the aged, and the glory of children is their fathers. That is the most important people in rendering and teaching justice in the family of God. Fine speech is not becoming to a fool, still less is false speech to a prince, a Messiah, a king is not made greater by false speech. A rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows into a fool. So here's getting close to the riddle of the fool who won't listen. A bribe is like a magic stone in the eyes of the one who gives it. Remember, we read the text that a king had to be chosen because of the bribery of Samuel's sons. Wherever he turns, he prospers because he gives payola and he expects payola back. Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. So to the judges, he is saying, anyone who comes to you that's covering up a sin, covering up an offense, seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. So if the same fool, if the same criminal keeps appearing in your court for a covered up crime, don't put up with it. You've got to render justice. A rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows into a fool. An evil man seeks only rebellion, and a cruel messenger will be sent against him. Let a man meet a she-bear robbed of her cubs rather than a fool in his folly. If anyone returns evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. The king will back up the judges will back up the families. The beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the quarrel breaks out. So if you're a judge and they start quarreling in front of your palm tree, and the plaintiff and the defense start bickering, you stop the proceedings right away. You put down the hammer, the mallet. Why should a fool have money in his hand to buy wisdom when he has no sense? He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous are both alike an abomination to the Lord. Why should a fool have money in his hand to buy wisdom when he has no sense? Why would a fool have money to pay off the judge when he has no sense and he's going to be back in court in a month? A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Your worst cases are family fights that come to court. One who lacks sense gives a pledge and puts up security in the presence of his neighbor. Whoever loves transgression loves strife. He who makes his door high seeks destruction. Building a mansion up on a hill is not good for a fool. A man of crooked heart does not discover good, and one with a dishonest tongue falls into calamity. He who sires a fool gets himself sorrow, and the father of a fool has no joy. He always has to bail the foolish son out of jail. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. He's saying this to the judges. The wicked accepts a bribe in secret to pervert the ways of justice. That's how I know he's talking to judges. The discerning sets his face towards wisdom, but the eyes of a fool are on the ends of the earth. When he's in court, he's looking all around, and he's not there. He's not paying attention to the proceedings. A foolish son is a grief to his father and bitterness to her who bore him. You see, the family needs backup. The family needs justice. The family needs someone who can straighten out a rebellious fool. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. To impose a fine on a righteous man, he's talking to judges, is not good, nor to strike the noble for their uprightness. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. Have you heard that proverb before? That's one of the more famous Proverbs of Solomon. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. I'll read that again. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. When wickedness comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes disgrace. The word of a man's mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a bubbling brook. So the words of a man's mouth are deep waters, and he'll drown in his own words. But a fountain of wisdom is a bubbling, babbling brook. You aren't going to drown in a brook if you have wisdom. And keep your words only to wise, pertinent knowledge and relationships. It is not good to be partial to the wicked or to deprive the righteous of justice. A fool's lips walk into a fight, and his mouth invites a beating. A knuckle sandwich. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare to his soul. This is the beginning of 18. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. Whoever is slack in his work is a brother to him who destroys. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous man runs into it and is safe. The righteous man runs into the name of the Lord and is safe. The righteous man is a praying man. And when he has a problem, with his neighbors, with his children. He goes to the Lord to pray. And the King of the universe will be his backup in his problems. A rich man's wealth is his strong city, and like a high wall in his imagination. Before destruction, a man's heart is haughty, but humility comes before honor. If one gives an answer before he hears, it's his folly and shame. I discovered that in traffic court. The policeman didn't show up, and so the judge asked me what happened. And a lawyer came up to me and said, the judge is sending you to traffic school when you didn't have to go to traffic school because the police, the only witness, didn't show up to court. That's just a common example. A man's spirit will endure sickness, but a crushed spirit who can bear? If justice is perverted, it crushes the spirit of the people. I'm almost done. The one who states his case first seems right until the other comes to examine him. An intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before the great King, the great God. The one who states his case first seems right until the other comes and examines him. The lot puts an end to quarrels, that is, the dice, and decides between powerful contenders. A brother offended, so in Israel they used to cast lots to resolve unresolvable problems. So he's telling the judges between two powerful contenders that you can't tell who's right and who's wrong. You take it to the Lord and pray over the dice. Don't spit on the dice. Pray over the dice. A brother offended is more unyielding than a strong city. And quarreling is like the bars of a castle. From the fruit of a man's mouth his stomach is satisfied. He is satisfied by the yield of his lips. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Judges can only judge a case by what comes out of the witness's mouth. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Now, this is in a section in Proverbs talking about the contention of brothers as being a big headache to judges. So Solomon is saying, when you go to court, you're better off taking your wife than taking your brother, because your brother's going to dispute the facts. So he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. The poor use entreaties. The poor people that come to court, they are begging for justice. But the rich answer roughly. They don't care about justice. They can buy off the judge. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. There's a chapter break here, so the next time we pick up chapter 19, we'll go to that. Here's the appeal. The judge who follows the prophetic king builds the heavenly king. This is what you're going to understand about the 144,000. The 144,000 are kin, kinsman, kindred, clan, tribe, and the king. So in Revelation 14, 1-5, 144,000 follow the Lamb King. All the families follow the Lamb King. Then I looked, and behold, on Mount Zion stood the Lamb, and with him 144,000. All the families who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. The Creator's name. The tetragram name. The Yahweh name. And I heard a voice from heaven like the roar of many waters and like the sound of loud thunder, like on Mount Sinai. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps, like David played. And they were singing a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and before the elders. No one could learn that song except the 144,000, because it's Deborah's song, who had been redeemed from the earth. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, like at Baal Peor, but women can be judges in 144,000. For they are virgins. It is these who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been redeemed from mankind as firstfruits for God and the Lamb King. And in their mouth no lie was found, for they are blameless. They don't take bribes. They don't pervert justice. Do you want to follow the Lamb? Do you want to learn to be a shepherd of your family? And follow the Lamb wherever he goes? If you would, raise your hand. And if you don't understand a word I said, take a card and write out there a question, and I'll get back to you. And if you want to be a part of this church in the end time, made up of families, made up of cousins, made up of uncles, and bring your whole family to the Lamb, let me know on the card, and we'll get you into this church and into the worldwide 144,000, all the families of the globe, waiting for Jesus to come and to save all their children, their grandchildren, all their families, because he's got a place in heaven for everyone in a minion, everyone in the family. With Jesus in the family, happy, happy home. Follow the Lamb wherever he goes.